Hey, yo. Yo. What's going on, lads? We're delivering down to this origin. That was a violent movement on the 1 minute chart here. Let's get rid of that. I liked, I grabbed this wombo right in here this morning. But, yeah, I think that was lovely. You know, breaking above this, tap back in, area of interest, and then pocket. Love it. Let's go. Right. Built an SNDR, broke it, and then traded back down. Barely traded back into it, and then obviously unloaded here. So I think that these lows here. We have news today, don't we? Don't we have news? Yeah. Or we at least did. Do we have anything else? What day is it today? We've got... Nope, just 8:30. And then Powell speaks at 3. Yikes. And then we have retail tomorrow. That'll be fun. Right. So, again, this sort of strategy doesn't take the place of structure. If you've got a sharp movement down, you fail to, obviously, failing above candles. These are sort of cheat code ways to get in on a very sharp trend with pretty clear objective as well. Right. And then we're taking lows to the left. This is where the energy of the move came from, but this low specifically at 90. I think we just took it. We'll see if you trade back in or not. But looking for these sort of retracements, like all the way up there, for example. That, yes, that lines up, but you'll find they end up being unlikely as the trend just unloads on itself after failure. Pretty weak bull bar. Wouldn't be surprised if we unloaded some more from here. Despite it sweeping underneath, they need to see something pretty cataclysmic in order to reverse this trend. Morning, bro. Right, so pretty much any reason to get involved. Now, this isn't Wombo. This isn't anything other than price action reading, right? You've got strong movement. This barely even traded back into this zone, so we know this is higher time frame from here. Whether you take this trade or not, you might be looking for this to come up to then get short, and that's fair. That's your conservative sort of way of looking at it. But our ability to pivot as traders comes from reacting based off what we've seen 1,000, 10,000 times, right? So you get some unload on any bullish price action after climax. Is this going to an objective, or is this going just down another 5 or 10 points? You could argue that like shorting anywhere, any retracement at all, right? So this tap back in, take your shot. Like this attempt to sell off, this bar closes weekly bullish, sell the close of that, right? Certainly not strategical, it's more discretionary, but taking your shot inside of here and then holding for 30, 40 points, or at least until you see some sort of failure. Even then, people will sell the close of this candle. Right? What we're wondering is if we build an SNDR here to take these lows that we haven't really swept any liquidity out in a higher time frame. Be interesting. Right? And if people sell above candles or whatever else and they get stopped out, not personally the way I trade, but if you're trading price action, you make money more often than not doing that. How's everybody's morning going? Did anybody grab this Wombo setup overnight, or at least in the last hour and a bit? Dumped down, held the 15. Held the 15 here. Cool. Right? So there's your intermediate trading back up to this area. Cool. Right? You get your bounce up. Now, this is a little bit tricky, right? For the tap back in, but if we're expecting higher prices, then you're looking at confirmation trades. So this candle didn't close above this or below that one. So this body closure, this body closure here for me, not quite A plus at all, right? If we created a valid low in here and then traded back in for higher prices, that I could justify, right? Even though this respected the area of interest, you got your tap back in. In fact, you probably got multiple trades out of this, right? You've got something like this. Not the manipulation. So one, bang. And then, shockingly, where do you think it tapped into? Like if you're drawing it from here, I suppose you draw it pretty much from like that area, because this is manipulation, and you draw it like that. Right? So that taps into here, fails, fails, fails. Multiple ways of getting involved there. Right? But again, certainly nothing that's super A plus this morning. Lots of points to be had though. Really well defended on that push back down. We're still defending these lows. Really interesting to me. You know, we failed, or at least we broke below here, traded back into our area of interest there. I suppose that this was more there, and then that traded in, but that failed, so we took the high. Finally trading back into our area of interest yesterday evening, or yesterday, what, afternoon, wasn't it? This area that led to this movement down in the first place. Finally traded back into that zone at 268. Or sorry, yeah, 268. Right, 268.50. 2 ticks. Came down lethargically to our area of interest and then retraced. Now we haven't quite hit the area that I wanted, which was this. I mean, I suppose you could argue if you're looking at the 15-minute chart, you could draw something like that, but even then, hasn't quite hit there. And that's drawn from the hourly. That's drawn from the hourly. So if we fail here, I think this is a pretty big objective to hit at 204s. Right? But that was nasty if they're just dumping it down, not taking an objective, and then run it up. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Bum, 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 bum. Pretty much, right? So again, you're kind of looking, you've got no structure here. This traded back up finally into this zone. So for me, that's a bit of an objective, at least with the higher time frame. So could you argue having an area drawn from like here or here? Probably. But given this being a higher time frame, I'm looking for retracements back in. And you could argue that if you're looking for an area of interest, you've got your intermediate here. I haven't taken anything short because this was a little bit more violent than I expected, even though we traded above this and failed. There's no real structure here. I do think we go lower, and I think if anybody grabbed that short, lovely. But I'm trying to determine if we're going to trade up to these 204s right now or if we're going to take this first. Beautiful defense of this area here. Again, not long from this because that was a violent reaction from tapping into this prior zone. Right? I think we go underneath this, and we'll see where that goes to. And if I'm wrong, then it'll certainly prove us wrong pretty quick. Whoop. This is nasty business. It's a little bit different than here. Right? I would have expected some sort of a tight consolidation in this. You could argue, you know, an intermediate SMDR perhaps, but I don't really think that fits the bill here. I think this is more just attempting to rally, but everything's being sold heavily into until proven otherwise. This being the objective. Pushing up now is different. Pushing up now will be failure. Right? And then you're looking at trading back into here like 50s or so. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to sort of what objective you think is going to be hit, right? That's sort of narrative building, and then determining whether you get higher time frame movements or what the response is too. right? So for example, this was our last structural bull bar. The low of it was 85.75. We haven't closed underneath it. So technically, there's a bit of indecision here from the bearish side. This should close here, creating a valid high that then shoves down. But it can't. Now, am I wild about how it's delivering from there? No. No, I'm not. And I think that this next candle is going to be very telling. Those that are looking short, that are determining whether this gets broken or not, are looking at the attempts to sell off like for let's go type price action. And if we're looking at fibs, like anecdotally we can draw it from here, like we might have, say, something like this, but that's in the 40s. If you drew it from here, it barely just tapped into it. I wouldn't draw it from here. I do think that's the area that broke below, fair enough. But this is a little unclear for me. So can we look at this and go, well, did we kind of respect this? Or is it here? Is that where the energy of the move came from? For me, it's this low, even if this looks better. But it's unclear. There's a lot of indecision here. Right? This, to me, is not what I want to see. You want to see finished business and gone. Finished business and gone. You know, everybody long in here is kind of going, well, where's my bull bars? We trade above it. We can't close above. We trade above it, we close bearish. We trade above it, we close here. Like, do we need to trade a little bit lower first before we go? Even anybody that's shorting above, like, they're kind of going, well, where's my sell-off? It's uncertain. And uncertainty brings range. That's why they're called institutional candles. So if it's uncertain in structure, then this objective and drawing, expecting this objective now to be failed, right? That we're just trading lower, similar to yesterday. I think they do exactly what they did here, but in reality, like, this caught everybody off guard. They're kind of looking at this going, well, this happened here, we didn't take this objective, so I can go long in here, and I'm expecting this to happen again. And I think that they're going to be sadly mistaken. Personally. But again, I'm not short. I'm looking for a lot, something a lot more clear for me to risk off of. Morning, Christoph. Right? They very well could just jam it down into this wick and then run. Hey, Mikey, what's going on, buddy? Right? Like, we're seeing a lot of evidence of not wanting to go lower just yet. But in here, at least, whether your objective is, say, the 40s, and you're thinking, I'm going to take this long and I will die on this hill. Like, if you're long in here and you're seeing all this, well, where's your stop? Your stop might be here, underneath this low, which is silly. It could be 10 points, in which case it gets run out. It's much better to wait for the attempt to sell off that then can't. So like a body closure above here, and now you got your lower time frame in line with your perceived opinion of where the intermediate time frame wants to go. Either way, for me, there's no A+ wombos in here at all, despite price reacting to this area to go maybe even a little bit higher. Who knows? Still sitting and waiting for this. Didn't get the retracement that I wanted. Fair enough that it tapped into here. So we'll see what they do. See what they do. Who got some back testing in last night? Who was watching the video again? How are we doing? Doing better. Okay. Doing good. Good. Hey, Lisa. How are ya? Glad to hear it. I can't wait to dive into it even further for you guys when you're ready. But I'm glad you guys are enjoying it right now for sure. Mikey and I were talking last night and wanted to get your guys' opinion on doing a challenge run-up. Yeah, I'm very, very jealous of your view from the Bahamas. I'm living life vicariously through you right now, just so you're aware. And literally living the dream. When I prioritize structure and use Wombo to add confluences to my zones, it's extremely accurate. Yes, exactly. The structure being the big one. Even this was at A+. You could argue we've got this, and now you got your change in order flow, fair enough, cool. But then you'd kind of look at this and go, well, why didn't I take this long out of here? Or whatever. We got your failure here, so we're smashing through because now your time frame above your 1 minute, whether you consider it a 15-minute move or not, should break through everything that's not part of the structure, right? Our protected high was up here. And you could even argue that we're expecting to do this, right? So on and so forth. Doesn't take the place of structure, but you can look for confluences for A+. Like that trade that we took at the end of the day yesterday. Break structure, trades back in, gone. Trades back into where? Energy of the move. Boom. That's like, excuse me? $70.50, and you've got 3 points of drawdown to make 40? No. Nonsense. This is where it gets tricky. That's a very strong showing from the bullish PA. Right? This candle, not part of structure. Here was your last structural bearish candle, and now we've got a body closure below that one, and yet inside of this wick. If this lower time frame gets respected, whether you're drawing it here, you can go wick to wick when you're drawing it on lower time frames. It's very aggressive. And if you're right, we go above this high pretty much, or at least that one. right? But you want this closing inside of this prior candle, and then that's a little bit more confluence for you. At minimum, you want 93s. This is shoving down, but again, highly aggressive, not A+. Right? I did take this. I'm looking for the high of this candle at minimum. That was a really violent movement. Not what we want to see at all, especially off the open of this candle. Trade's not invalid, but certainly not what you'd like to see. And 93.75, I'll probably take majority of my position off here. Looking for this high and then this one by extension at 106. And this should be violent if we're right, because this is now your lower time frame confluence to go. But you understand why we're waiting for this, why we're waiting for this here and not any of this nonsense in there. Boom. Now you've got to be wondering, higher time frame shove, this high at 21.75, really weak as we trade up to the 40s. Let's go. Anybody running? Anybody running with this? Yup. Yup. Violent. Violent. And again, doesn't take the place of structure. You could look at something like this for retracement back in. As long as you're still looking higher, these are adding opportunities, right? Personally, I don't really like seeing this. Even though we broke and closed above this, I wanted to see this go. Right? I want to see higher time frame price delivery. Right? So we'll have a look and see if we get something out of the 90s here, but that might have been the last breath. The conservative trade is this to the 23, and then even if this fails, we've got our high probability trade. Right? You'll notice we're not drawing this one from here. You could, I suppose. You could. Right? In which case, your aggressive pocket would still be right there at 90.75. Boom. Walk it up like a dog. Still looking for this higher. Look how many lines I got on my chart now. You would think I look like a, or that I'm just drawing them to try and look like a genius or something. Right. 105. We didn't take this high. I think that there's definitely liquidity above that. That was a violent movement back down. Right? Just a little concerning we didn't take this. We defended it quite nicely. I do like this higher time frame move. I don't want it to be lethargic. And generally, your tap back in is your mitigation, and then we should be explosive. I do think at minimum we trade above this 105 here. But we need to see a little bit more than this. Otherwise we go underneath this low. Get rid of some of this stuff now. We got here. That was that one from there. That can obviously go. That was finished at like 8:30. We already grabbed that one. Right. So if we're going to be range bound, we're basically playing tag. That probably, that's a little rough. You'd actually argue from this because this being manipulation. Or you could draw it from here, perhaps, if you're looking at your intermediate time frame. Six seconds. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, what we're leaning on right now with this movement is we got a sign of strength from the bullish price action here, right? There's your target, conservatively from that, right? So drops back down to your pocket, respects it here, trades up, drops back down to our pocket here. Our lower time frames are being respected, which is telling you we're going higher, probably above this high. That was the expectation here. We failed, right? So certainly conservative type trading is justified, right? But we're being shown that we don't want to go lower. We're trying. We had an inducement here, traded below. This actually closed underneath this candle, but still inside of our pocket. Yet another 20 points here. Right? You could suggest garbage price action, but we're following it along, walking it up. Very little drawdown. $7,000 day for me so far on this. Not even shoving. Not even shoving. At what point does everybody get nervous? Tapping into imbalances, see if it gets respected. This imbalance gets respected. That's very dangerous for the bears. I think that we go flying, right? But we're still not out of the woods yet. We've got this sort of movement. They would have to have a body closure underneath this to create a valid high. Now that, not exactly what we want to see. I would prefer this to tap into here and go, even though this is still technically respecting, even though we mitigated it entirely. We'll see where this goes. Now this is all internal, right? Suggest hypothetically we can't break from here. You've got this. This failed to make a new high. So in reality, should we continue lower, your expectation would be underneath this low. We could be tapping back into here, but for me, this is very unclear. Right? And we kind of knew that from how price reacted to this. So we'll see. We'll see if we're just generating liquidity to take all of these. And I think what happens in here in the next bar or two is going to be very telling with that. Right? Should we sweep under this and fail and close like in here versus continuing to try and rally and failing? Right? This is basically your last defense unless we're going to take this low. Not what either side really wanted to see. Anybody long wanted to see this bounce off and go flying, right? But this was the minimum needed to go higher. I think we take this low at minimum, but certainly nothing doing for a long. And look at that. Look at that. $64 and then $54.75 possibly. We'll see. But you gotta at least look at this movement that there's an objective to be taken. Whether it's this low, which just got wrecked, or this one underneath, right? And again, we can take these longs with inducement confirmation, cool. We're talking about conservative PA. I think if we were going to rally for up here, this wouldn't have happened. There goes that low. There goes that low. Now we determine what we're doing, right? If we're looking at this, well, I think we already tapped into these areas, didn't we? Even if you're drawing it from here. That's basically why we got held up in all of that. Yeah, probably your next stop. Doesn't have to be today. Your next stop, 95s. We'll see. We'll see, we'll see. Yuck. 40.50, 40.75. That's gross. Everything closed underneath except for the 15. I think we go below these lows. Right, but this is actually a perfect example. Excuse me. We can take trades out of this. We have to understand they're not A+ because we're not with structure. We're leaning on price telling us here that it wants to go higher, and then we're taking aggressive trades to continue on. But then price tells you it wants to go lower, or at the very least that you're expecting A, and by expecting I would mean this, to then mitigate somewhere higher perhaps, which would have been the valid expectation, right? You've got your your pocket up here. Let's get rid of this. Get your pocket up here at 40 that we were talking about. Personally, this I thought was going to trade into that. But when we have something very different occurring, that's similar to why we were looking long here. Price is telling us it wants to go higher right now. We were talking about in here that we should take these lows. And they're going to mess around. This just ended up being building a intermediate time frame SNDR. Right? So, wanting to go higher, not ready yet. Trades lower. Trades higher, closing above a strong bear bar. You could argue the last structural one. Okay. Now we've got something to risk off of. Now we've got an idea that price is telling us it wants to go higher. Similarly, price is telling us it doesn't want to go higher here. And now it's telling us it doesn't want to go lower here. We don't know necessarily whereabouts it wants to trade up to. We can use the Wombo to kind of look at that, right? This area never got violated. The Wombo of this move, this strong directional move after this shove. And if you would have had conviction in your short and been shorting here, not expecting anything higher, you would have gotten paid quite handsomely today. I personally think lower. This is an area of interest. Is that A plus? I don't necessarily think so, no. You're getting some inducement if we wick into it and fail. You got lines all over the place now. So this one's obviously hasn't done its job. There we go. Right. If this creates a valid high in this movement, sorry, this high was 73. That closed at 73.25. Technically, this is a valid swing now, and that just closed underneath there. You might get a sweep of it into here. But quite honestly, I think you're looking at this area to fail at 68. And we'll see. Again, trading is as much a journey of self-discovery, right? You're determining how aggressive you want to be with your trading and when to stay out of trouble. This to me is nasty business. Yes, the 15-minute, you got 4 minutes, it might sweep and fail underneath to run higher. You're looking for this candle to basically get obliterated if you did take that short idea, right? You'd probably be break even at this point. And this is one of those instances where if you're looking at this, and you've got this area of interest, you want to see tap in and just death, finished objective, gone. Right? Not sitting around sort of waiting to entertain. Yes, we didn't hit our area of interest here, right? I'm not in this by any stretch, although I do think that that it was viable, and that's only because of the valid high that was created, right? I just don't like that it didn't tap into where I thought it was going to. And that's kind of the fractal nature of the Womble, right? If you are short, you've got to be looking for these and then possibly even unloading lower. We'll see. Yuck. 25 seconds. What do we get? Right? So, again, sort of painting a picture, you've got these areas of interest. You've got your inducement now. Could this work here? Yeah, absolutely it could. Right? Possibly even back down to this. But I think that these lower time frame ones, you basically want it to tap into and continue on its way. We're not really interested in this sort of price movement. Right? I think that this one is a lot more accurate. Get rid of these long ones that we already took trades out of earlier. And even that one, I suppose, too. Right? And the reason for this is because now we're drawing it from the leg itself, not just we're looking at lower time frame, almost lower time frame structure forming. Right? So you've got your 15-minute, which is doing this. And then inside of that, for this retracement leg, you've got your lower time frame doing this, leading to that rejection, which is your expectation. Now, again, you're kind of throwing, or at least you're looking at this 15-minute being nasty business, taking this low and running. So I'm very cautious over these short plays, right? And you're seeing it just blasting through them with no entry whatsoever. I just really don't like that low. The lower time frame ones you can be aggressive on. The A plus is when you get that form of inducement. Right? Takes everybody out, runs higher, and then you get your lower time frame tap back in. Right? Gives you that buying pressure, sweeps them out, and then leaves. None of these were A plus, of course. Now this is curious. We've taken all the liquidity on the sell side. It'd be interesting to see where this ends up. Be really interesting to see where this ends up. This movement back up into this area of interest that broke it. Cool. You could argue midpoint of your SMDR. You know, possible to make money if you're shorting here, but again, our concern right now is that we've taken our objective and our higher time frame looks like it's shoving out. We're not respecting anything on the way up. So curious. Curious. And obviously in hindsight with this, oops, pretty close. Pretty close. If you're looking at manipulation, it's probably even closer. Even then. Even then, didn't quite hit it. No trades for me since these longs in here. I think that I would have hit this short on this movement up, if only to tap back down and mitigate the prior area of interest. Even with a valid high, although I would have rather not seen that. That sweep there, I would have rather that. And in retrospect, this close probably dictated this movement to come afterwards. Yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Now again, you might argue something like this. Getting rid of this short side. I just don't like that low. I kind of want to see structure broken now, rather than getting caught in a higher time frame movement. If we get some sort of inducement and then a sweep, I think this would be viable for another leg up. And that's only based off of this 50-minute chart that's just looking nasty. We staying safe? Is this making sense to everybody, or does everybody have major questions on what's going on here? Prior high 121.85. You looking at this one? Oh, protected high, yes. Intermediate time frame, yes. Yep. All right, what you're looking at is that we formed a valid high, traded down, created a valid low, and then broke above it. So internally, you've got internal protected highs and lows forming. Right? Ideally, that would have traded back down. We didn't actually even touch into this swing, I don't think. That high being 74, that low being, oh, it did, by a tick. By a tick, didn't give us a retracement. Didn't really take any liquidity, actually. I would have expected at least that low. All right, hopefully we, hopefully we fail here and then run them out, and then go. Okay, so body closure above that. It's probably just runs now, unfortunately, taking all of these with it. First stop will be the lower time frame SNDR, more than likely. We've already taken our fractal. Oh yeah, I think that if we look at this as being confirmed now with lower time frame structure, then we basically have our, in fact, we failed underneath here. We've now taken liquidity and failed. We've actually got to be looking at going higher than this. Right? If we're looking at this price action that's been lethargically moving down from all-time highs, Like we swept underneath, we had to trade back up. We then traded down, failed. Traded back into this prior area, and now we're failing underneath. Unless we get a major failure here at 90.25. Like we've now taken all this, and if we're coming back in violently, especially if we create like a valid low here, like internally, that's nasty. Just didn't get what we wanted out of this. Right, so looking at this high here at 13 for sure, and then 18.50. And I'll mark this one up as well. It can be tempting to chase, especially if this really gets going. There will be retracements that come in. Right, if you're looking at where your intermediate area is, you got to be looking at this here at 29. Right, so possible that we trade into here and then we come back down into this area of interest, being the one that would break above this area, which was responsible for capping this bullish push. The market made a decision on this high to run, or at least to drop, I should say. Ideally, this closes inside of this, even though it'll close underneath here. We want weakness coming in on the bearish side to really run higher. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for continuations, you've kind of got this now. Right? But we're failing to make a valid high in here. So this is basically like we're going to follow it up to wherever it wants to go. It's probably going to go somewhere like this. Right? And now you're seeing confluence with that. Why? Well, the midpoint of the swings here. Right. We'll keep it here for now. That failure was a little interesting. So it probably comes for this low at 175, and then you've got your lower time frame stuff in here. You'll notice as well, though, like We don't really have any structure here on the 5. We should be taking this high at 21. Your 1 minute structure, we got a little bit of a 1 minute SNDR in here to take this into our pocket. We'll see what ends up happening on this move. Ideally, we kind of come lower and we sort of sweep fail or something like that. I think this is sort of your lower time frame SBS or something, isn't it? Something like this, and then run. This being the area that would break above your intermediate time frame one here. I'm going to personally wait and see what happens in this area. I think ideally we trade back down to this, and I think that agrees with your midpoint here at 87. So you got multiple reasons, stacking confluence, and that's really where the wombo power comes from. But again, failing to make a valid high here, you're kind of wondering if we're even going to tap into this at all. Let's go. For those of you guys that love playing all sides, you're looking for all kinds of moves here. You're looking for that move into here to short, to come back down, to then go flying. How we doing, lads? Are we green? Are you just watching? Does this make no sense? Or is it making lots of sense, both while watching and in our accounts? There goes that high. Finally into our area of interest. Violent. Gee, Mikey, who could have predicted this? You want a valid high created, or else we go higher. Or else we go higher. What? 7 ticks a drawdown? Seven ticks a drawdown? That was a violent move away. You're looking for this tap back in to unload, but you're not wild about what's going on here. Ideally, you get something like, not even that. You get something like this, right? Sweeps above and gone. We didn't get our sweep on this candle. So anybody that shorted the close of this didn't get taken out. Not ideal. Even in our area. Anthony. We're going to get into it on YouTube? I can't even go with the popular vote because I think MJ was a lot more popular than Gretzky, personally. There it goes. Right, it's not what we wanted. Got a little bit of a move. Traded back into the SNDR, which would have been your lower time frame objective. Right. If it fails here, you got some inducement, sure, but taking it in here now is very different than taking it prior to. Right? Depends on your aggressive level. If you're willing to take this sweep of this candle and you're looking at trading back down into here, then fine, right? You've got this now, I suppose. Right? But if it doesn't fit your model, if you're looking at it going, well, yeah, we took liquidity, cool, but we're doing nothing. You're right. We haven't done nothing with this. Right? This is extremely aggressive and risky. Right? We're essentially looking at whereabouts we're expecting this high to be, that low to be, this high to be, that low to be, this high to be, that, and painting a picture of how the market is moving both up and down. Up and down. You guys in the premium are going to really look at this in spades, where you're calling tops and bottoms of the intermediate and lower time frame movements. That multi-time frame analysis coming in hot. Right? Swept above, swept below here so far. Not ideal. Not ideal. You want finished business and gone. Finished business, gone. Finished business, gone. Right? Even on the long side, gone. Gone. You can't argue with the precision of whereabouts this is happening. A lot of selling taking place at 29. A lot of selling taking place. A lot of contracts exchanging hands. Right? My opinion is that it goes lower, but price is also telling us right now that it doesn't want to. So whether that has to continue up and sweep this candle and come down, or whether it just goes from here, whatever it wants to do, right? Maybe we're trading it back up to the midpoint of this. I think that would be fair as well. A little bit higher, like 40s, which we talked about earlier. If she's going to drop, she's going to drop now. Otherwise, it's squeeze city. Really not wild about that bear bar coming in here, but that's the first time we've made a high and actually had a bear bar come in. So if it gets defended and we start to really unravel, that would be how it would happen. But, I mean, I kind of want something swept and then a full body. Like, I've got business. I've got places to go, man. It's somewhere to be. And it ain't here. You see how it's a little bit jumpy? Something's going to happen. We haven't broken order flow, so if you're shorting here, you need this taken, right? And that's sort of your prerequisite for your fractal nature to go, right? We made this high, we traded down. We made this high, we traded down. We made this high, that low was 2050, that low was 2025. Not ideal in this. Not ideal in this. And if you're staying out, you probably have very, very valid reasons to do so. Right? However, we can all agree that the area that we're drawing out, extremely precise, and we offer ourselves very high probability of outcome based off of having the right areas to look for signatures and price from. Right? We're still failing underneath bullish candles. Can you talk a little bit about the bias? We swept the level of the M15 with the wick, but on the M5 we have a body closure. Yeah, so that's nasty business, right? Like you look at your higher time frames, this being a higher time frame low. First off, when did we know that we were going to take that? We had our rocket down, barely traded back up, and now we're defending that high here. So if we're going to leave it, like look at what happened yesterday, generally you get blast up above the manipulation leg, lethargic movement down, which leads to a reaction. Now this low is strong, right? Versus this here where we trade up close to it. Yeah, we traded above this. Love it. And the response after trading back into this area was death. Lethargically sideways. Can't break this. Leading to further downside. We broke it. And then what happened? So ideally this candle doesn't close above this one. This is on the 1 minute. We're not even looking at the 5 right now. Right? You'll probably notice something similar on the 5, which we've now closed above this candle. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. Right? But you're looking at a valid swing. The response down, back down into it, was met with a higher time frame shove. So it's not necessarily that the body closure happened here. Right? It's the response that happened afterwards that gives you context. Otherwise, you would be shorting the close of this candle because you have a body closure underneath expecting lower prices. I didn't like that low. Right? I made that very known. But if price is telling us higher through structure, we have to follow that. Oops. Right? So it's like all your higher time frames swept, okay. But I mean, like this probably swept on a different time frame as well from there. But that is yeah, I don't know. How do I explain this? Like we have to look at these like when you're looking at sweeping, right? You're essentially saying that the narrative is done. So it's not just the sweep itself, it's the follow through that occurs with it. We look at body closures as being high probability or higher probability. For example, we got a body closure on the 5 minutes, so we're expecting on the 5 that if we tap into an area of interest that we come down. When does that invalid? It's invalid once your higher time frame is pushing in one direction and your 5 minutes pushing the other one. Well, obviously we're going to go with the higher time frame. Right? But in terms of bias, we allow the lower time frames to tell us what the higher time frame order flow is doing. For example, if we're creating structure on the 1, we might think that this low is going to go, but until we've broken structure on the 1 minute, our bias is that the intermediate time frame is done, body closure or not. Right? And loved this area for a short. Loved it, but not getting the signatures we wanted, which tells us higher, and then finally creates a valid low, or valid high, sorry, taps back into it, leaves. And you'll notice this didn't even give us a retracement at all. Yeah, I think this area being the S&DR that broke above this, and then above that, you might get a tap into the midpoint here. The confluence of this lines up with the S&DR. You have your midpoint of your zone here at 88. You could probably draw it from this. I think 88.50. Either one of them, you're fine, right? What I'm concerned about is that we've finished our objective higher. Right? So this would be an area for a bounce back up to this. Your concern obviously being the large imbalance that it's really accelerating price. We've now broken below this S&DR that broke here. Do we mitigate this area or do we trade all the way back down? Right? And now we're looking sort of maybe something like this. Are we really wild about this low? I'm still not, but very cautious of longs that come in here. Here comes your midpoint, looks like. Right? So you've got this here, the energy of this move. I think that this is going to be intermediate, so I'm not really wild about drawing it from there. I'd probably draw it from something like this would be your area of interest in the 70s. Right? This was more for continuations on the way up, so tap back in, leaves, tap back in, leaves. We'll see what ends up happening here. Right? I think that you might get something out of this if it can respect. But that would be a tap back in, and then your end goal would be something in here. If it's going to rally at all. If it's going to rally at all. Right? But again, I would need some sort of inducement because this looks very violent and it's coming out of a key objective area being the intermediate time frame pocket from this move that aligns with our prior zone, which we never really traded into. Does that kind of make sense for you guys? So you might look at this prior zone and you might get a trade back up to 102. We'll see. But very cautious of where it's delivering from. Turn of the hour. Turn of the hour. I should actually have drawn it from here, I suppose, if we're looking at where the aggressive move came from. Sorry about that, guys. There's areas all over the place, isn't there? What is this one? And the reason this one is because our expectation was trading back in, then leaving. Right? So the whole power of this move comes in from where the market is making decisions to come from. Doesn't always line up with your highs and your lows of the areas themselves. So we'll see if this ends up trading. Obviously, that's a beautiful respect, like literally to the tick, and then trading back up to this area of interest. And so on and so on. right? Everybody kind of understand the methodology behind this low instead, right? You've got a nice body closure. You might get something fractal as we trade back up to our 1825 area, right? And you might argue, okay, well, you know, you got your base hits here at 102, sure. Actually, we didn't even create a valid high on this, right? This was just manipulation. This was just manipulation. All right, I do think we trade back up into here, but we'll see. At minimum, you got your inverse SMDR play that seem to be respecting as well. So if this is going to lead up, you've now got something like this. And if that gets respected, then away you go. And that's kind of the fractal nature of the Wombo combo. Give another couple minutes, see if this ends up playing out. I want to see how this reacts into here. I'm not just going to blindly go into it. Right? Obviously, there's a lot of overhead that we could dump from, but oop. This is nasty. Nasty. All right, so we got our delivery from there. I think the last stop. I don't like this low again, but we'll see what ends up happening with this. If that was just some nasty manipulation, I don't like how it really came into it. Right, or the inability to create a valid high as well. I do think we go a little bit higher, but price is not really giving us a lot for that right now. We're getting these violent sell-offs. Respecting it though. See if we get what we get above this high. Right, but this is why we don't just blindly get in, because we don't want to get stopped out if it ends up holding. We want finished business and done. Finished business and done. We're in the area we like. We got a little bit of follow through. Let's go. Let's go. Right, definitely needs to take these 107s, and we're looking for. Why did that change? Oh, that's because I moved it from here, didn't I? right? So 118.25 would be the target. But we've got to clear this for sure. At worst, you're break even if you're taking this properly. You'll notice that if you're taking these lower time frame areas, you're looking for the reaction for price to close inside. You're looking for the trade back in that then fails. This is an adding opportunity. And then once that trade back in fails and then leaves, now you can go break even. Right? Some of you might take some off here. You guys might be holding for this. Some of you guys might be going for broke and thinking that that we go higher, and this is just the intermediate retracement back in after we've now failed underneath this low. That's a valid assumption as well. I personally don't like this low, but if price is respecting and we've got some higher time frame push out of this area, then you've got to respect what structure is telling you. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Sweeping this candle is fine. I don't want a body closure underneath it. Ten seconds. And I'm flat. This might be your tap back in, and that's fair, but I do have to run. So I'm going to end the stream here, guys. We'll be on live afterwards. That doesn't mean the trade's invalid, but for me, I didn't want to see a valid high formed. You very well could still have structure in this as we lead into this area of interest. But I'd be trading this very cautiously now, right? I still like this 18.25 as a target. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. We'll be live in the Discord if you guys want to come in. It'll be open to the public. And trade safe, stay out of trouble. We'll see you guys later on.